Former U.S. President Donald Trump is approaching a critical deadline in his most costly legal battle to date. He faces the severe risk that New York's Attorney General Letitia James will begin trying to collect a $454 million civil business fraud judgment against him. Last month, Judge Arthur Engoron found that the defendant had fraudulently inflated the stated value of Trump's assets. The aim was to seemingly increase his purported net worth and obtain more favorable loan terms for Trump Organization properties. Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump have run their father's company since he was elected in 2016. Earlier this month, New York State Attorney General Letitia James made an official notification of the civil fraud court award against Trump in Westchester County. Westchester, just north of New York City, is home to the Trump Organization's Seven Springs estate, as well as the Trump National Golf Course, Westchester. James registered the judgments in Westchester against Trump, the Trump Organization, and two of his adult children on March 6th. The registration do not necessarily mean that seizure of the Westchester properties are imminent, but they are a procedural step that would be necessary should James seek to seize them in the future. Trump's lawyers have previously said in court filings that 30 surety companies that would have guaranteed the bond have turned him down. Bonds are typically backed up with a mix of cash and assets equal to 110% of the total judgment and are returned if the defendant prevails on appeal. The former president recently claimed to have almost $500 million in cash, but said he'd rather spend that money on his presidential run than on the judgment against him. By current indications, America is heading towards a close presidential election in November. The two major candidates are well defined. Most voters have made up their minds, and little has changed over recent months in the balance between current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. Biden and his inner circle have reportedly been drawing up meticulous plans and creating a large legal network focused on wargaming a close election finish. All right, for more on this, we are being joined by Mark Marowitz from New York. Mark is professor at State University of New York Maritime College, and he's joining us live. Mark, great to see you. A big day for Donald Trump here in New York. What are your thoughts about everything that's happening? His comments saying that he has the money, Letitia James just waiting to seize his assets, and basically the whole country watching to see what happens.
I think that the proverb, I don't know if it's a Chinese proverb or Indian proverb, be careful what you wish for. Let's suppose they get the right to seize the assets. They are really stepping into one of the most convoluted, complex legal procedures in history. For example, Trump has apparently 500 companies that hold his assets. This is similar to the idea in corporate law we learned in the law school, where the taxi companies, each taxi driver has his car as a separate company. So if he gets sued on an accident, then you can't sue his whole fleet. So this is exactly what's going on. Also, he holds these properties as leases. He has contracts and partnerships. And furthermore, he has lenders. So supposing, as the New York Times points out today, that they seized the assets at one of the buildings. By the way, I worked years ago in a law firm, 40 Wall Street, one of the Trump one of the Trump assets. That's actually a lease. And what happens is you seize it, but then you step into it, and now you have to recoup it, and they're lenders and tenants. So I think they're going to have to create an entire infrastructure to deal with this. The complexity of it. I mean, I don't think the Attorney General's office is going to continue to really function except to do this. So I think that this sounds like a possibility, but then you have lenders, tenants, and all sorts of competing interests to contend with. So do you really collect at the end of the day? And how do you collect? And how many legal proceedings do you need to collect? So this is one gigantic Pandora's box, as we would say.
Yeah, and Mark, I want to talk about this Westchester property of Donald Trump that's making headlines. Why is Westchester Golf Course so significant in all of this? Why did she go for that? I know she mentioned Letitia James wanted to go for Wall Street. And how will this work out? I mean, it's not like there's going to be this big sign that says seized, or there isn't going to be a big lock, as far as I know, on these properties should she go in.
Well, the illegal proceedings that are brought, for example, 40 Wall Street, according to the Times, is worth $250 million, but there's $200 million collateralized against it. And transfer taxes and fees and all sorts of other legal issues, there'll only be $1 million left at the end of the day. So when you say, how does it look? Yeah, they go out and they bring a legal proceeding, and then it becomes complex. Like these bankruptcy or reorganization proceedings are very complicated legal proceedings. So they're not going to be, signs on the fences necessarily or signs on the door, but there'll be so many legal proceedings to try to unravel. And that's the problem you have here, is unraveling the legal interconnections of how all this works, whether the golf course or 40 Wall or all of these buildings and these, even his own apartment, are all subject to separate corporate requirements and corporate entities. So the point being that at the end of the day, it's very complicated. By the way, Trump has just done a public deal with his Truth Social company, with his media network, which could possibly give him a windfall of $3 billion. The only problem is he can't sell the shares under securities laws for 6 months. So if he's playing chess here, he's got his appeal pending. He's got all sorts of legal proceedings. We're getting closer and closer to the election. And even though this is in a state court, he's trying to get closer and closer as much as possible to the election, where it becomes less and less possible to really proceed against him. Certainly on the federal side, the federal cases will be very hard to proceed on because the Justice Department apparently has a rule that they don't proceed against candidates for certainly presidential elections. So his game here is to keep postponing it. And then even if she gets the judgment, by the way, he did post a bond for his defamation suit. That one he was able to do. That was about $91 million. That one he was able to do. But this number is so big and so complex, he hasn't been able to get it together, and he hasn't been able to find bond companies willing to issue the bonds. So for the Attorney General here and for Trump, it's a gigantic, complicated chess game that they're really playing here. And even if Letitia James wins the chess game, look what she gets as a result: an unbelievably complicated legal mess, labyrinth of companies and partnerships and entities. And to unravel those, I would think, would take years to do. Not months, not days, years. Complexity. And they're going to be requesting documents. How are they going to do it? So again, what a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to say the least, what an absolute mess. And we'll be watching very closely. Of course, the former president is going to be in New York today regarding that hush money case with former adult star Stormy Daniels. So that's something to watch as well. Mark Marowitz, is always great to talk to you, and always great to get an attorney's perspective on all of this.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.